right, so let's get started on the first project. Just to go over the general topics here. Again, I have to update some of the dates, so obviously ignore those dates. I don't expect this to be done by September 18th because a little wrong. So the first assignment is we're going to design and model your own badge, emblem, keychain. They're all kind of interchangeable, however you want to do that. This can be your own design. It can be a reference to something. You can do a direct copy of something. That is okay, long as you are not just finding a file online and trying to say, yeah, I totally did this. No, you didn't. Meaning like you could totally, you want to make a PATS logo, more power to you. I'll show you how to import an image. There you go. Or it can be totally freehand, or you can take an image and kind of tweak it, anything in between. You get the idea. We'll be going through the initial modeling in class right now, and then you're going to be finishing this on your own time. And while these do not have to be completely done for next class, I expect you to have put in some work on them, because next class I want to talk to you about how to prepare them for printing and print them. So this project focuses on just really the basics. So learning file saving, interface navigation, which is just figuring out what tools do what, that sort of thing. We're going to be working with images and canvas importing, so bringing in pictures from the internet or wherever you need. Main things are the starting points: sketching. So that's going to be your basic lines, text, anything like that. And some of the other elements and such. Specifically, also extrude. That's taking your flat drawing, bringing it straight up. That's an extrusion. The requirements for this assignment: it does need to be modeled from sketches, lines, that sort of thing, any of that kind of stuff. Bringing on a canvas, an image, reference image, totally optional. If you want to, great. If you don't want to, great. Doesn't matter. The extrude tools are used to create a 3D body. If you want to use other tools, experiment with other ones to make additions and stuff like that, that's fine. But the main thing is we're learning how to use the extrude tool. All the features and elements must be combined into one single body. Now, if you actually make like a chain or anything like that, yeah, that can be separate. That's okay. But meaning that it can't be like a bunch of like different virtual objects just kind of stacked next to each other. It needs to actually be one continuous piece. That way it can be printed. It must have some kind of a ring or a hole feature, which could literally just be a hole in it so that you could like put a key ring or something through it, that sort. The design might be your own, might be something you found, might be a combination. That's okay. Size-wise, it should be no more than about 80 millimeters. Generally, doesn't have to be round, but size, length and width, which is about 3.5 inches. Square does not have to be square. It could be oblong, it could be misshapen, it could be an amorphous blob for all I care. But that's the main thing. And thickness, we're going for like really no more than like about 5 millimeters thick. If you're making it smaller and you need to make it thicker, something like that, that's okay. It's just more of that. If you make it like larger, and then I also want to make it like yay tall, it's going to end up like a giant brick on the printing, and it's going to take a while to print. You can use text, but this is mainly intended to be an image project. So if you want to put like your name or something like that, cool, more power to you. But this is largely an image project. So if you want to, again, base this off of something you found or a logo, cool. You want to add text to that logo, whether or not it's there as present on the original logo, or you just want to add something, either way is fine. But this is largely an image thing. So don't think, I made a circle with my name on it. It needs to be a little bit more. So again, ignore these dates on here, but we're going to be working on this. We're going to be working on these a little bit next class as needed, but the main goal is to work on these outside of class. But if you need help, some troubleshooting, stuff like that next class, that's perfectly fine. That's what we're going to do. All right, let me change over to Fusion, and we'll get started. All right, so first things first, I do want to show people how to transfer files. If you started a project on your own file or on your own team, and you need to transfer it in, like I said, unfortunately, there's not a direct path to that. What you have to do, download the file from Fusion onto your computer and then re-upload it after you switch teams. So I'd open this up, open up my little ducky puck. From here, I go to export, and it will automatically save it as a .f3d, a Fusion file. Make sure you know where it's going on your computer. In this case, it's just going to downloads. Yep, save, export. So you are actually exporting the file. If you just go to save, It's just saving the file as it normally would on the cloud storage online. From there, then you go to upload, select your file, and that is my duck coin, open, upload. I'm not going to press upload because it'll overwrite and yada yada. But that's it. That's all you have to do. Unfortunately, there's just not a direct path one-to-one. That's all. All right. So I'm going to open up a couple of these just to show you some examples. So let's see here. Let me change the view settings because this gets a little confusing when it's hidden and such. There we go. And yep, that's current. Let me hide the canvas underneath. All right. And hide the sketches. All right, there we go. And just so you can see this a little bit clearly, or more clearly, there is an automatically, it has a appearance. The default appearance is like metal or something. And it's supposed to be like steel. You can shift to auto color if you want. That is, hold shift and press in, shift November. And it'll switch to just an automatic randomly assigned color. It's a little bit easier to see what you're working on. That's all. All right, so this one we got like the little rebel symbol, rebel scum. Why not? Why not? The little Jedi Order symbol. Great. You can turn this into a roundel. You can turn this into an amorphous blob. Like I said, doesn't matter. You could turn it into an adorable ducky. Whatever you want to do. Main thing is we are making something where it all is one continuous piece that has layers extruded up. Can't just be one single thing. Need to have it a little more complex. But like you see here, tracing like the duck, the bill, the eyes, that sort, you can extrude them to different levels and it will show up through them. Now, one quick word of warning, using text, if your piece is too small or the font is too small, it will not print because the print head has already only so small of a diameter of the extruder. What that basically means, the extruder is 0.04 millimeters, so it's really teeny. But if your font ends up being 0.03 millimeters, it's just going to not print it. Not like it won't come through. I mean, it will omit it entirely. So we'll go through what will happen for that and how to fix it. But ultimately, if we find ourselves in that position, either we end up scaling up your object a little bit, or you just go back, change the font, maybe you make it boldface or something if on your text. That's it. It's a very quick, easy fix. All right, so just to go through some examples and just to show you how this works, first what I did is I imported an image of an adorable ducky. Find a picture, you go to insert, or it's the default picture, the default symbol, canvas. Bring that in, insert from your computer, find a picture, drop it in. And I'm just going to get out of this real quick. Let's see here. I don't remember what all I have here. Let's say stock photo there. What you'll then have to do, I'm just going to hide this current canvas, the duck. What you'll have to do is pick a plane. This is the standard thing for working with any sketch or anything like that. You have to pick a plane, a virtual work environment. We talked a little bit about this last class, but these colored lines refer to different virtual directions, and they are subjective, meaning that it's not always this way. It's just reference to how you're looking at how the virtual plane is. So the red is your X axis, left and right, side to side. Y, green, front and back, toward and away. Z axis, blue, up and down. So when I say I'm going to pick the XY axis, it's the one in between. Ran out of colors. And I dropped my cover. XY axis is like you're working on a tabletop, looking straight down. If it's, say, like the XZ axis, it's straight up in front of you, like you're working on a wall or a I forgot the word for it. Easel. There we go. Yeah. Trying to find where I dropped my cap. So in this case, I'm going to build on the XY axis. It's the easiest things, like you're looking straight down from the top. There you go. Select. You have a bunch of modifiers here you can play with, like the different size. opacity, so like how dense the image is, how see-through it is. But honestly, you can also just leave it as is. Don't worry about sizing it up. You can do that by hand later, mainly because sizing it is a scale, meaning it's relative. 0 to 1, meaning like if I want it twice as big, 0.5, something between, or we can do it numerically, but you can see scale factors times 2, times 3, anything in between. You get the idea. But I'm going to leave it just as it was at 1. Hit OK. Reason for that is I want to do something else called calibrate. I want it to be a specific size, not just relative size. To do that, I go mouse over the image file, and if it's not showing, use the drop down, which now will have canvases there. Right click where it says the actual image. Go to not edit canvas, but calibrate. What this will let me do, and I'm just going to snap to the top view, I'm allowed to pick 2 points. So in this case, because the other image I didn't know it was a spoon, so whatever. At the top and the bottom, back, or the atom. It'll show you the actual distance between there. 14 millimeters. That's not that big. That's like yay big. Millimeters, not centimeters, millimeters. Obviously, I want a slightly bigger spoon. Let's make it roughly, that's about 6 inches, 120 millimeters. No, not 120. It's more like 200. There we go. So let's say 120 millimeters. If you need, we have rulers over there that have both imperial and metric scale on there. Makes it a lot easier. But, oh my God, that's gigantic. We resize. Press F6. It'll resize the thing. That's the whole, where is you? Fit or resize. There you go. So that just shows you now I actually know exactly how big I'm working. So like when I said it needs to be like no more than about like 200 millimeters, now we're at the size we need to work. But I'm going to, instead of making a spoon, I want to make a ducky. There we go. So you've calibrated the thing. You can always make changes to it later as you need. Cool. From there, you create the images, or you create the image. Let me cycle back to the, on my time slider, and we'll walk through it. I made the image, create a sketch. We're going to draw a sketch. We'll make an outline. I'll show you how to do some of this stuff. We'll make outlines, different stuff. Now, the only reason you would make multiple sketches is if you want to isolate things. You cannot start a sketch, draw part of it, like, say, like the bottom, and then start another sketch and draw the head. That will not work. It all has to be the same sketch, same closed sketch. I'll talk to you about what I mean in a moment. From there, we're going to use that sketch and extrude stuff. Meaning, in this case, extruded the bill. Hiding, problem is I started hiding stuff when I was doing this. Making the eyeball, extruding, make the body, stuff like this. The body, these are all hidden for whatever reason. These can be different heights, so it will translate because we're not using different colors of the filament. Yes, there are ways to change filament colors, but we'll get into how to do that later. It's not through this. It's through like heights and layers. But you can make a bunch of different changes. And in this case, I'm just going to hide the canvas so it's a little bit easier to see. You can make different changes, make different elevations, changing stuff up, making more outlines, change it up. Because in the history slider, I had the objects hidden and such. Make a bunch of changes. You end up with, oh, good Lord, it keeps hiding everything. And now it's hiding different versions. There we go. So I added text, stuff like that, and then I just use the extrude tool to go back into it and use it to cut things away. I'll show you what I mean in a minute. But basically, that's kind of what we're going for. If you want to make something more involved, we make something more involved. That's pretty much it. So let's start a new project, bring something in here. And first things first, what do you do first? Save it. Save your project. Control S, Command S, whatever. Collins in class, or see if I can spell. We'll go ahead and make a tick reference anyway. Spoon. All right. If I want to start this from an image, Obviously, find the image, whatever you want to use online. Take your own pictures, doesn't matter. Take your own drawings. I'm going to insert a canvas image. Start with that symbol. Insert from computer. Find the image. Select my profile or my plane. In this case, the XY plane. Oops, I accidentally selected the wrong one. Do that. That's okay. On this toolbox here, because Fusion, everything is with like pop-up toolboxes here. I accidentally selected the wrong face. That's okay. Just hit the X, select the face you meant to. There you go. I'm not going to change the size right now. I'm going to leave it as is. Hit OK. All right. Open the drop down. Right click on the file name. Go to Calibrate. I need the top view so I can actually see what I'm doing. Select one, select the other. Let's make it bigger. Make 120. There we go. F6 resizes. Now, if you're trying to make something that is symmetrical, I do definitely recommend trying to orient that. And to do that, you can either just move the canvas, which if you select that, you can go up here to the top, go to move copy, or press M, like Montana, on your keyboard. That brings up the toolbox. I want to move sketch object. Actually, let's see, will it let me do any of that? Well, you jerk, you're not letting me do any of it. All right, fine. So if it's not letting you, you do have to right click and go to edit canvas. Sorry. But all you gotta do is just use one of these arrow keys, click and drag, bring it down. You need to rotate it. That's what the circle thing is. Now, there are locked increments, so it's going by 5 degrees. That's a lot. So you might need to try it like numerically. So I don't know, -2.5, closer, -2, -1. Yeah, that's close enough. All right, there we go. So we're just going to ignore the outline. I just need the spoon there. Cool, there we go. All right, so from there, doesn't hurt to save. You don't have to save, but I'm just going to. Canvas. Oh, also I had caps lock on. First thing is create sketch. Select there. We're going to select the same face we're working on. There we go. Now we're just going to do our best to trace. Now, obviously, if you have a symmetrical thing, you could start with something like a circle, or in this case, an ellipse. An ellipse starts with a center point. Since I try to get this all right on the x-axis, that red line, I'm going to pick somewhere right in the middle. First, you select one direction, then you select the next, and you can see how it makes an ellipse. It does not have to exactly match your canvas. I don't care. Like I said, the canvas can just be a reference. You're trying to get it close enough. There you go. Cool. But if you're making this by hand, you can use lines. You can use whatever you like. Remember, you have circles. Let me zoom out a little bit just so we can play around with this a little bit. You have center point circles, which is the default circle. Starts at the center, and you either draw it out, move your mouse out, set it there, or if you wanted to, you could put in a numeric value. So actually, I wanted that to be like, I don't know, 45 millimeters. There you go. If you need to change that, mouse over the dimension, double click, left click, and it'll let you adjust that to say, I don't know, maybe it needed to be 55. There you go. If you never had a dimension on there to begin with, there's the dimension tool. Or you can just press D, December on your keyboard, mouse over, and you can see now it has a dimension, and now I can change that to say, oh, it's like 109 millimeters. Let's make it 110. And it just resizes. That's it. You have your basic straight lines, which is the line tool. Press L. You can just go around, blah, 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 blah. Eventually, you will need to make what's called a closed image. So you see how these two circles are highlighted blue, but the little weird line drawing is not? That's because it's not enclosed. It doesn't complete the line. If I leave it there and press enter, it's left open. But I can click and drag that point, make them overlap. Now that thing turned blue. Now it's an enclosed sketch. That's something I can extrude. If it's not enclosed, It cannot be extruded. The way to make curves, if you're just making general curves, is what's called a fit point spline. Basically, you are defining making points, not actually, and the computer is trying to draw a curved line based on those points. So using fit point spline tool, first 2 points is a straight line because distance between 2 points is a straight line. Once you start a third, now you can see the curve. It's not an exact curve. It's based on mathematics of that. To finish, press enter, and you're left with, at every point, these green lines coming off. These are your handlebars. What that is you can grab one of these, the points on the other side, you can turn it, and it'll turn your line. But see how everything turns with that. If you move those, shrink those handlebars, the curve gets tighter. If you stretch them out, the curve gets wider. You can drag these points around. You can add points to make a sharper point. If you're trying to make a curve, say like with making the duck head, more points makes a tighter curve, fewer points makes a larger, smoother curve. You have rectangles. Your standard is a center point rectangle, meaning you pick something in the middle, you drag the mouse left and right, up and down to make it wider, more narrow, taller, not. Use tab to toggle between the 2 different dimensions. So like, all right, that one's 220, and the other one I haven't decided. So make it about that big. Cool. These orange dotted lines are called construction lines. These are handy for making partial lines or reference lines. So say I wanted to line some stuff out on this, I could make like a circle against these lines. There we go. What if I want to use those circles as references? Select the circle, press X or on the toolbar or on the toolbox. It creates a construction line. Now it's something that is just a reference line. The rest of the stuff is pretty, oops, that's a mirror tool. The rest of the stuff is pretty self-explanatory. Polygon makes multiple-sided stuffs. If you select the polygon tool, you have circumscribed or inscribed polygon. That just means it's based off of a circle, and you want the polygon on the outside or inside of the circle. If I select that, let's say, I think this was circumscribed. Drag outward, but if you want to change the number of sides, do not press anything yet. Press tab on your keyboard, and it toggles over to the number of sides. I want that to be 12-sided. There you go. Now I can drag it in and out and change that. Or if I want it to be a specific size, 250. Now I hit enter and it changes it. If you wanted this to be straight up and down, we can use some of the things that are called constraints. These allow you to put actual dimensions and restrictions on freehand drawings. So like, all right, great, this polygon is this way, but I need it to be like flat on the top and bottom and up and down on the sides. What you can do is select the first one, horizontal, vertical, and select the top one. It snaps it horizontal. That's all. Or you could have done the same thing over here. It's going to give me an error because it's saying it's over constrained. It's just, you don't need that many constraints on it. That's all. You can make a lot of moves, stuff like that, or say like, on this circle, I wanted to draw a line from somewhere and draw it just so it snaps there, okay? But what if I wanted that line to actually be a tangent, which means it's directly coming off of that circle? I use the tangent line, or the tangent constraint. Most of the tools in Fusion work by, you have 2 selections. You select one object and the reference. Usually how this works is the first thing you select is what will move. The second thing you select is what it's related to, what it'll move to. So when I select the tangent toolbar or constraint, I select that first line because I want it to be a tangent to the circle. That first one will move. Now I select the circle. It's going to move in relation to the circle. Now that line is tangent to the circle. If I had selected the other way around, the circle would move to where it's a tangent to that line. Play with the other ones. Equal means that they're going to be equal sides. Coincident just means they're going to snap together. Parallel obviously means things are going to be parallel to one another. Perpendicular, you get the idea. We'll play with those more later, but the main thing is you're going to be making stuff a combination of those. Now, if you have to make multiples of the exact same thing, don't do it freehand. Be lazy, let the program do it for you. So, like, let's say I wanted to make a whole bunch of these circles right here. I can use the circle pattern tool. Select that circle. First one in the toolbox, it says select your object. What is your center point? What is it making multiples around? I'm going to select that center point there. Now it's going to make multiples referencing that first object. The default is 3. I can use the slider to add a lot more or fewer. And you have options to make it like all of them, or you can only make it partial. So you're making it all only just by the side. I made a bubbly smiley face. I can shrink them to make them overlap, that sort of stuff. So basically, a lot of this stuff is going to be lazy, let the program do the work for you. I am all about letting it do my work for me. So there you go. All right, so we made a whole bunch of blah, blah, blahs. We made some weird stuff. Let's go back to making the spoon here that I was trying to make. So I'm going to do my best to kind of build this out. Maybe I'll use a center point rectangle to make the spoon handle. Cool, I'll make them overlap. Now, center point rectangle might not have been the best option because I didn't really know where the center was. All right, so instead, oops, let me delete all of that. By a selection box. You have 2 different major selection boxes. Obviously, you can select things individually. Cool. If you click and drag from the left and drag right, you see how it's an orange box with a solid orange or a solid blue line? It will select only things that are completely inside of that box. So it did not select the oval. If you select from the right and move left, the yellow box with the dotted blue line, it will select everything that it touches. That's the difference. So I'm going to get rid of that little rectangle I started drawing, and I'd rather do this by hand with a line. But like I said, I'm going to be lazy about it. So I'm going to draw a line right in the center, all the way to the back, straight on. If I meant to get this straight, but I'm having trouble making it flat, use Tab, go over to degrees, and press 0. I want to keep it flat. There we go. So now when I drag it back and forth, it's going to stay there. Cool. Now the reason I'm drawing a straight line is I can use one of the other tools, Offset tool. This makes one line exactly the same, excuse me, as a copy as it moves outward. However, in a straight line, it makes plenty of sense. But if I use that tool on, say, like a zigzag thing, offset is it's trying to match that in single directions. What I mean by that is you use offset on this one and drag it outward. See how it distorts. Just be aware of that. So the spoon, sure, whatever. So that means if I wanted to, I could have also tried to make this a fit point spline. Let's start somewhere like there. Yada, yada, yada. Close enough, close enough. Zoom in. Cool. Could also use instead, let's drag these points around, try to get it close enough. Again, remember, close enough is close enough. I want to not have to draw 2 of those. So let's use the mirror tool. Select that one. Mirror tool, these 2 triangles. You'll have to select your object and the mirror line. It has to have something to mirror against, what it's relative to. That's also why I drew that center line. Makes a copy, hit OK. Now it's going to have these constraints show up. All these little lines, all these little symbols, that's the symmetry tool. So what that means is if I make a change to my original, it's going to make a change to both of them. Like I said, be lazy, let the computer do the work for you. I'm going to delete that offset line that I made before. And because I don't want this line to interfere with things, I'm going to change that to a construction line. Press X, dotted blue line, cool. All right. That could be a spoon, or I can add stuff to it later. Anyway, get the idea. Finish sketch. Now, because of the way I'm going to work here, I'm going to make a second sketch. This first one, I'm going to label it, just slow click. Oops, spoon, there we go. Remember how to spell, cool. From there, I'm going to start another sketch, same place, but this I'm going to make like the outline, the kind of like outline part, you know, this outer section. So it's not just a floating spoon. In this case, sure, I keep saying amorphous blob. Let's make it a amorphous blob. And I am just making something that surrounds this. Cool. Actually, that kind of looks more like a fried egg. Not bad. Works for me. All right, hit OK. Now, before I hit OK, oops. What if I want to make a change? Oh, no, I actually meant to make a change to this. I wanted to make a double line there because I want to reference something later. You can either right click where it says that sketch, go to, where is it? Oh, it's not showing up there. Oh, used to. Weird. All right. So if you double click on it, it will bring it back up to into the sketch environment. Or if you find it on the time slider down here at the bottom, right click on the symbol and you can go to edit sketch. I don't know why it's not showing up there. Brings you back into the sketch environment. All I wanted to do is use the offset tool and make an outer line there. I'll show you why in a minute. Hit OK, finish sketch. Cool. All right. So now I have, and I'll hide the canvas just so I can see what I'm doing. Whoa. I forgot. I probably should have deleted all of that mess. That's what happens when you make a bunch of silly doodles. All right. Now I have my spoon shape, my outline, and this amorphous fried egg blob. Cool. Now we're going to use the extrude tool. I'm going to select the sketches for my spoon. I accidentally selected everything. I don't want that. On the toolbox, press X, get rid of that. I wanted just that. Just that. If you're having trouble selecting those, simply hide one of them, isolate what you're doing. There you go. Now I can drag this upward, or you can do it numerically. So like I wanted it to only be like 5 millimeters. It was already 5. You can also, whoops. There we go. You can also rotate this. I'm not actually rotating it. I'm actually adding a taper to it. So you can do this numerically here. So like if I want to, instead of just go straight up and down, I make it angled. Let's say -5. Shrinks down a little bit. Let's say -20. See how it's angling upward? That's something you could do. You don't have to. It's just something you can play with. In this case, I'm going to put it at 0 because I don't want to mess with it right now. Hit OK. Oh my God, all my sketches went away. Don't worry, that's what the default things with Fusion. It assumes, oh, you've already made one alteration to your sketch. You don't need to see that ever again. I was still working with that. So it just automatically hides it. Unhide it, the little eyeball symbol. There you go. I want to unhide the other one too because I want to make an outline and such. So in this case, I'm going to use Extrude again. And I'm going to select both the inner and outer line there. And I don't know, let's go 2. Or you can go negative, so you can go downward. So -2. So you can see it stretch downward. Now, we're going to play with some of this other stuff later. But one of the main things is at the bottom of the toolbox before you hit OK, there's operation. Join will automatically link them into one body. Cut is a way where you can actually use an extrude, and I'm going to show this in a little bit, where you can extrude into a body and use that to cut away from an existing body. Intersect is if they have an overlap and you only want the overlap. New body is a new body, and I'm going to leave it at that because and new component, something for later. New body, there you go. Now when I expand the body's drop down, you can see I got to hide all that stuff. I've got my spoon. And at this point, I'm just leaning into the egg. All right. But the reason I made that offset is now I want to extrude just that line. So I'm going to go back to extrude, or you can just press E for extrude, E for everybody, or E for extrude. And now I just want that line there. I'm going to put like 1 millimeter. It's going to go upward. I'm going to leave it at join so it automatically links. It did not create a new body. That's just a way for me to create this outline. Different ways to add a little bit of stuff. That's it. So let's hide those 2 sketches. And at this point, this is where you could do stuff like maybe I wanted to make some text on this. You will have to make a new sketch. This is a lot of back and forth. All right, make a new sketch, finish sketch, make a new sketch, finish sketch. You get the idea. But the other thing is, I can add sketches and such onto surfaces. It doesn't just have to be the original lines. So I can select there, and I can select my origin plane, all that, or I can actually select the top surface of an object, like the spoon, like the egg shape, whatever. Let's select there. I'm going to, like I said, I'm just going to go lean into this at this point. Sketch toolbox. You have two options. There's a basic one and then sketch on a path. I'll show you the difference. Basic sketch, you have to draw, click and drag and draw a rectangle. Basically, you're just creating a toolbox or a text box, just like a lot of other programs. We'll go egs. Obviously a little bit too big, so let's change the font, the height. Let's say that should be 8. Oh God, not 87, just 8. There we go. You can play with the different stuff. You play with the different fonts. Very fancy egs. Very fancy there. We can go with bold, italics, whatever you feel like. If you were making this a stamp, you could flip it horizontal, and so it's in reverse. Stuff like that. You can use your standard alignment stuffs, all that kind of fun. Okay. But what if I wanted to make it wobbly wobbly? Make a spline. You have to have a path for it to follow. Just draw that line. If you don't want it to interfere with anything, you select it, press X, turns into a construction line. From there, select the text box again. I'm going to select the other option, text on a path. Select the path. It's that line. Now, there will be flips and such of that. You only have so much control over this. I don't know why it is upside down. I will admit it does some weird stuff how it calculates orientation and such. I think it's just because it's below or it's on the other side of the x-axis. I think that's why. And we'll go with spoon. You want to make that boldface, italic, or not any of them? Or let's see here. What all kind of silliness do we have? Curls. Some weird fonts. Very fancy. Anyway, you get the idea. We play with some different fonts, whatever. Sometimes you might run into an issue. Ooh, extra fancy. Need to make that bigger. Sometimes your fonts might interfere with it becoming a sketch because that's how this works. It defaults into being a sketch. Hit OK. Let's hit OK. So that sketch is now the font, or let's say text, because that's actually what it is. All right. So I'm just going to switch to hit the home button so you can see a little more clearly what I'm doing here. Use the extrude tool. I'm going to select one of the sketch parts. Drag it upward. Oh, I selected very, very much the wrong thing. Again, if you're having trouble selecting stuff, so you can isolate, you can hide stuff. Zoom in sometimes. There we go. That's what I wanted. Zoom out. I don't know. Let's only make it 2 millimeters. There we go. It's on automatically join. Cool. Join. There we go. Unhide the text thing so I can grab the other one. Hit extrude again. If I can just grab only that. Well, see it keeps. There we go. What if I pull downward? If I go downward, you see it automatically switches to cut. If I hit that, and it calculates, let me hide the sketches. You can see the difference. One is it's gone downward. The other one, it's gone upward. That's it. So you can play around with this stuff. The one other thing, like I said, it does need some kind of a hole. Often enough, you can use the hole tool, but I find it a lot more effective and a lot easier to work with if you simply alter the original text. If you actually, sorry, not text, sketch. If you add it into the original sketch. So in this case, let me relabel that. Make sketch. Double click there, brings it back up into the. There we go. The only problem with going back on the time slider is if it's something that predates like another thing you're trying to build around, in this case, the spoon was already there, but say you made the spoon after you made the outline, it won't show up. That's the only problem. Then you might have to make a sketch after the fact. But in here, I can just say, you know what? I'm going to add a little circle. Sure, 10 millimeters right there. Hit OK. Now that's going to not alter anything yet, but I can say go to, as I mouse over, which extrude function, which extrude tool, it'll highlight what that is affecting. If I right click on that one, go edit feature, and now I can just, if I can actually grab it, uncheck that circle. Come on, don't make me look like a schmuck. It's not letting me select it. So fine. Oh, there we go. There we go. So now, if I unselected, or if I just deselected that, hit OK, it recalculates everything. Now the hole's there. The last thing I definitely recommend doing is stuff like adding fillets. These are simply just ways to round over sharp curves. In this case, it's not really going to matter much, but a fillet can also add strength to your print. You can select by faces or by edges. In this case, I'm going to select those two edges, and I can draw it in, drag it in by hand until it gets curvy. I don't know why those are two. It's making those two very different ones. There we go. Yes, there's a full round fillet, but we'll talk about that stuff later. There you go. You can also add to them, say like, oh, you know what? Actually, I wanted to, oh God, I keep forgetting there's all that stuff out there. Say I want to add curvature to like the key ring. I would definitely recommend that if you're planning on putting a circle, like one of those keychain key rings through here, especially if it's a smaller circle, it needs to be curved. Otherwise, the curved chain won't go through that. So go to fillet, and let's try the other option. Full round fillet. All that means is if I select the inside face here, that's selecting everything. Let's try it. It's going to automatically make it the right fillet diameter, so it makes it a perfectly curved inlet. That's all. So play around with that stuff. Hide all the sketches. We can certainly add other details to stuff, like, I don't know, the spoon shape. I could always go in and say, let's unhide that, unhide the spoon shape, make an extrusion on there. Now it's going to do the whole thing. I can make a smaller circle on here and just make a reduction. So meaning like I want to, let's draw a sketch on the face up top, and I want to just shrink that line down a little bit or something. I can say, like, instead of trying to trace that circle or that ellipse, let's use the offset tool, and let's just shrink a small hole there or something like that. Okay, hit finish. I keep forgetting about that. Let's extrude like just that little section now. Drag it downward a little bit. Hit OK. It just makes a little cut. So that's all. That's the kind of stuff we're playing with. You can add curves, fillets, stuff like that. But the main thing is we are trying to make a multi-tiered, depending on how many details and all that kind of stuff, how much you want to add. General shape. You want to add text, more power to you, but it needs to be basically image-based. The color is irrelevant right now. We're going to add color through the filaments themselves. But that's pretty much it. Play around with it. Make something weird. Why not? Last thing, make sure to save it. You can add features, you can add suggestion, or you can add notes to that. But the main thing is, as you save these, remember it's going to add different versions. You don't have to make separate files. It will stack and make multiple versions. That's it. So play around, have fun. Try not to freeze up your computer. And on that, make sure to manually save often in case you freeze up your computer. All right. Enjoy.